Hi, everyone. Welcome to VO Health's What's Your Body Telling You? We're thrilled to have you here with us today. I'm Biz Breland. I'm the GM of Women's Health. And today you're going to hear from our CEO, David Harvey, and learn about the origins of VO, our mission, and how our program works. You'll also hear from three of our experts that are running the men's health, women's health, and functional nutrition segments of VO Health. Please drop a comment or a question in the chat as we go so that we have a better idea of what you want to know today. At the end, we'll have a Q&A and get as many questions as we can in. And we had some questions come in ahead of time, so we got those from email. Thank you guys for sending those in. We'll try and combine as many as possible and get you the answers that you're looking for. We'll keep this under an hour to accommodate schedules, and that way you can rewatch this on demand, so it'll be convenient for you in the future. So it looks like we've got most of our attendees coming in. We'll give them just a little minute to get going, and then we'll get started with David Harvey, our founder and CEO. All right, David, if you're ready to go, we'll get this party started.
I am ready. Thank you, Biz. I'm so ready. I'm so excited that you guys have been so nice to share a part of your day with us. We're super grateful for that, and we really think we're on to something special here at VO, and we're glad that you think we are too, and that you wanted to learn more about it today. I can't wait to introduce you to our team throughout this call. I think you're going to be really impressed with the clinical talent that we've assembled around the table. But before we get into that, I'd like to take just a second to give you a little background on my personal journey in healthcare and how we came to this point to launch our new company, VO Health. So I've been in healthcare for about 25 years, and it started with a personal journey. My son was born with some very complicated healthcare conditions in 2001. Hard to believe it's been 25 years. And it really gave my wife and I a front row seat to the U.S. healthcare system, both the good and the bad. And if you met my son today, you'd never know he had been through dozens of surgeries as a young child, because he's doing great today. And we had a great clinical outcome. And we were surrounded by incredibly talented clinicians that got him where he is today. And we're very grateful for that. But having that front row seat to the healthcare system in the U.S. also opened our eyes to some things that didn't work very well. And this was 25 years ago. So that's what inspired me to get into the healthcare business to begin with. This is my fifth healthcare company in partnership with my partner, Van Willis, who's our Chief Operating Officer. And every step of the way, we've created technology-enabled services to help health systems, physician groups, and the consumers or patients that they serve have a better experience. So we've been trying to chip away at that for years. But after 25 years of being on the front lines of our traditional, what I call now our sick care system, it really became more and more apparent over time that there needed to be a quantum shift in the way that we practice medicine in this country. Because if you can imagine this, we spend about $4.9 trillion a year on healthcare in this country today, and 95% of that spending is reactive after you've already become sick, injured, ill, or obtained a disease. And so we think it's time to flip the script on that ratio of reactive to proactive care. And that's why we're introducing to the market starting late last year, VO Health. And we're glad you want to learn more about it today, because VO Health is designed to do just that. Flip the script on our sick care system and really pivot to a well care system. And instead of 95% of all healthcare spending being after you get sick, how about we try spending some of that in advance of becoming sick, all with an effort of keeping you out of the sick care system to begin with. So our mission here at VO Health is to make you happier by making you healthier. And we definitely believe that if you don't choose to make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And everyone around the table here at VIO believes in that. And we've all got our personal stories that have led us to this point in our careers. And we're so excited to bring you, our members, along with us. We execute this mission with a team of incredible people that you're going to meet today. We've got physicians, nutritionists, we've got nurses, we've got biohackers on our team, we've got super athletes on our team, and they all work with you proactively to discover as much as we can about our members. And I'm going to explain that in more detail here in a second. And then we work with those talented clinicians to help create a plan for our members. And then you're paired with a coach to help you execute the plan. So as we look at our methodology in a little more detail, part of that discovery process is comprehensive testing. Unlike what you can get through your insurance-funded sick care system, which is typically about 12 or 15 biomarkers checked every year at your annual physical, we're doing 10 times that. So we're checking more than 120 biomarkers across 17 functional systems of the body. We look at blood, urine, gut health tests, but we're also doing body scans, some genetic tests, and we're now, for the first time, ingesting wearable data into our platform too, so that we can help our members understand their sleep habits, their exercise routines, and get more of a daily kind of update on our members as they go through our journey. Once we've discovered as much as we can about our members, which also includes some comprehensive assessments, we do lifestyle assessments and family history assessments. Then, like I mentioned, our clinical team sits down without our members on the phone. They sit down together and they look at all of your data and they create a comprehensive action plan for each of our members across key areas of health, like metabolic health, sleep health, stress, nutrition, exercise. They really take a holistic approach to wellness for our members. And they're unlike many traditionally trained primary care physicians, they are looking for root cause analysis, not just treating symptoms. And what I often say is traditional healthcare is very good at diagnosing something and then creating orders and prescriptions to address that diagnosis. But what we're trying to do at VIO with our planning is jump in front of diagnose, order, and prescribe. And we're screening, planning, and coaching. So this comprehensive plan is a big part of what we do. And then what's a plan without action? So we're here to help you act on that plan. And so our nutritionists, our doctors, and most importantly, our wellness coaches are tied at the hip with you throughout your membership. They meet with you regularly. You have unlimited interactions with those coaches throughout the year, and they're there to help make sure you're executing that plan. You might need some encouragement. You might need some questions asked. You might need some nudging along the way or some clarification about the plan, and the coach is there to do just that. So we have this Discover, Plan, Act methodology that repeats itself multiple times throughout the year and multiple times throughout your membership with VIO. Surrounding that methodology is our infrastructure. So outside of the Discover, Plan, Act methodology, we are building a community of like-minded members that are with you as well along your journey, because we believe at VIO we can get further together than anyone can alone. And so going through this journey with a community of like-minded members is super important to us. We also have a community of partners that deliver incredible therapeutics and other types of kind of innovative therapies that will help you achieve the goals that are laid out for you in your action plan. Everything we do is data science. So you will be amazed at the amount of data we've already collected in such a short period of time. And it's helping us refine our action plans for our members and in a private way, learn from the data that's flowing through the system here at VIO. And finally, we've created a great member technology experience. It's very intuitive, very interactive, unlike what you get from traditional healthcare. And so if you go to the next slide, Emma, you'll see some of this technology in action. But when you become a member, you can tap into all of the biomarkers that we've measured. And we measure those biomarkers across 17 different functional systems of the body. You can immediately see which of these biomarkers or biometrics are in range or out of range, how many of the biomarkers within a system are out of range. And when you click on one that's out of range, you can see where you stand on the scale and maybe most importantly, how you're trending over time. because chronic disease does not just happen overnight. It's building year over year. And the idea is to nudge those biomarkers back into optimal uh, range before they become something serious. You can also access this technology via your dashboard. We're doing some exciting new things in addition to monitoring the biomarkers that we track for you all year long. We're also, like I mentioned, ingesting your wearable data. So we've got some really interesting metrics and analytics coming out of this sleep data, exercise data, meal planning data that we're tracking for our members. You can see on the right where you're also have access to our partners that provide supplements when appropriate to our members. You can do add-on tests as well. So based on what we learn about our members, it might be suggested that you get a food sensitivity test or a gut biome test, or perhaps you're a good candidate for a GRAIL cancer screening test, even a full body MRI like I've had. So we have a great library of additional resources that are available to our members through the platform as well. But above all else, the technology, the data, the plan is great, but we couldn't do it without our people. And so we've got this incredible mission-driven team that I mentioned to you earlier. And again, we've got, you'll meet Kelly Miller, who's our lead clinician for women's health. You'll meet Dr. Stephen Winiarski in a moment, who's our lead clinician for men's health. Dr. Ellsbury is our PhD in functional nutrition, which is pretty hard to find these days, and she is incredible. And in addition to them, we've got nurses and these amazing group of wellness coaches, some of which are biohackers in and of themselves, that are driving this team forward. We've also got great advisors and other doctors around the table that are making sure we do pursue this mission in a safe and effective way. So that's the team. Thanks again for being with us today. We're really excited to have you, but I'm even more excited to introduce you to Dr. Stephen Winiarski. So Dr. Winiarski, take it away.
Thanks, David. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Dr. Stephen Winiarski, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and did my undergraduate studies at Emory University. Then I moved to Chicago to study medicine, did residency up there in family medicine, and worked a little bit up there. I've worked in San Francisco and in Washington, D.C., but have spent most of my clinical career in Atlanta. In 2013, I became board certified in clinical lipidology. This is a medical specialty that focuses on cholesterol issues and the prevention of cardiometabolic disease. And I am happy to be here to share this information with you. All right. So the first thing I wanted to show you is this slide that I think does a great job at illustrating the VO philosophy. So this is a graph that shows functional ability across a lifespan. So it shows a couple of things. First, it's an illustration of how our health early in life determines our health later in life. And unfortunately, a lot of the decisions that we make early on and the habits that we form early in life can determine our health span and ultimately our lifespan. This graph also shows that there is a discrepancy between our perception of the effects of aging and the effects of chronic disease on our functional ability as we age. So these are very distinct processes. One limits us based on the mechanisms of aging that we don't yet completely understand. And while the other one limits us due to the consequences of diseases that started in our 20s and 30s and are essentially preventable. And, unfortunately, most Americans fall in this red and orange line. And, number one, they aren't reaching their top potential as far as functional ability, which compromises how long they can stay reasonably functional later in life. Number two, they're shortening the amount of time that they spend at their maximum functional ability before their decline starts over here. And I've worked in a lot of facilities where, this is tragically seen every day. Individuals who are, relatively young, they're, in their 60s, are suffering from multiple medical issues. They're on multiple medications. They have had multiple hospitalizations. And, this is completely based on the fact that they've had diseases for decades that have been untreated. Now you compare those same people to the ones that are the same age on the blue line. They've had no hospitalizations, and what are they doing? They're hiking with their grandkids and enjoying life. So these are realistic outcomes if we just invest in our health. So what we're doing at VIO is helping people to identify the early signs of chronic disease long before they become symptomatic. We're using specific blood tests and imaging techniques that help to identify early signs of what could develop as a chronic disease. We're also taking that information and with our patients creating a strategy to improve any abnormalities, to decrease or eliminate any risk factors. And then after 6 months, we're reevaluating them. We're redoing the labs, redoing the imaging and seeing, are those strategies actually moving the needle? Have they borne fruit? And if they're not, we iterate and develop new strategies until we can get our members to that blue line. We're really fortunate that there's unlimited information, but when you compare what we're doing with patients at VIO to what people can do on their own with the AI tools, you can get all the information you want, but if you don't know how to incorporate them in your lifestyle, it really becomes, number one, overwhelming, and number two, useless. So let's go back to one slide. So what are those? We talked a lot about chronic diseases. So this is a slide that comes directly from the CDC and shows the most common causes of death and disability after 50. If we don't die from cancer, then we're going to die from heart disease and metabolic disease. And what are those? So you're going to have a heart attack. Most of chronic liver disease now is due to metabolic disease. Most kidney disease is due to uncontrolled hypertension. Diabetes is essentially, at least type 2, is a preventable disease. So, we can address almost 50% of the causes of death and disability today in today's world. Not to mention that, people with long-standing diabetes have a 20% increased risk of developing cancer and a 20% increased risk of dying from cancer. So we can take a chunk out of that too, just by modifying our lifestyle and treating disease early. So what we do at VIO is to look for risk factors for the development of these chronic diseases. We look at blood factors like ApoB, we look at triglyceride levels, we look at insulin, we look at hsCRP. These are just a few that we look at. And we also look for signs of early disease, not only in the blood, but also using imaging techniques like coronary calcium score and whole body MRI. And the earlier these risk factors and diseases are addressed, the better chance we have to avoid diseases that can cause consequences down the line, and the more likely we are to reverse those diseases. The reality is that, like I was saying, thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, we have unlimited information. The question is, where do we want to spend our time and energy to get the best outcome? My colleague, Dr. Miller, is now going to talk about how she is helping women get to the blue line and beyond.
Well, hello, everyone. I want to first apologize for my tardiness. I didn't mean any disrespect, but was having technical difficulties, and I'm just really honored, excited to be here with you guys today. So my name is Kelly Miller. I am a board certified OBGYN. I'm also board certified in obesity medicine. And I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I practice in Louisville, Kentucky in a large female only practice of 100 women total, and just serving our women in Louisville and in the surrounding counties. And I've been in practice 25 years. I've delivered a lot of babies. About 6 weeks ago, I delivered somewhere around my 4,000th baby, and I'm closing that chapter and pivoting. I've long been really passionate about wellness and longevity. As I'm aging, as my patients are aging, women started asking a lot more questions, sophisticated questions, questions about aging well and weight gain. And so I decided to really do a deeper dive into hormones and gynecology and weight management, and did more conferences, became certified, so I'm a national expert in menopause medicine, and again, obesity medicine. And I'm just excited to be with VIO and bring my experience and knowledge, and continue to help more women. With VIO, in contrast to my practice currently that I love, I'm on that hamster wheel, and I do love what I do, but I see a lot of patients in a short amount of time. And with VIO, I've really enjoyed spending more time with patients one-on-one, and just giving them, regardless of the life stage that they are in, giving them more information and supporting them in their journey. And that's very unique about VIO, is that we're proactive, we're listening, and we have that time for you. And I've really enjoyed that. And this slide just highlights, with one of I'm so passionate about, my favorite things is I've gotten to be and stand along women during, all their different life stages, whether it be puberty, contraception, fertility and reproduction, delivering their babies safely, supporting moms in their postpartum time, and now perimenopause and menopause. And I learned so much in my training as far as reproduction, but we're more than just our reproductive years. And I'm really passionate about, we're going to spend a lot of our lives in postmenopause. And menopause is it's having a moment, but we're spending a lot of our lives in postmenopause. And how can we age well and decrease the chances of, like Dr. Winiarski said, the chances of death. And so if you'll go to the next slide, Emma, yeah. So I love to highlight this as far as our issues, as far as what's going to cause death and decline. Breast cancer gets a lot of press, as it should. It's the most common cancer in women. But if you look at this statistic that 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer, 1 in 33 will die if they get breast cancer. And while I'm very passionate about prevention and lifestyle changes to decrease that risk, we are more than just our breast. 1 in 3 women will have a heart attack, and 1 in 2 of us will die if we have that heart attack. 1 in 2 women will suffer an osteoporotic fracture, and 1 in 3 will die if they have a fracture. So we know cardiovascular disease undoubtedly is #1 killer of menopausal women. And 2 out of every 3 women, 2 out of every 3 Alzheimer's patients are women, and 1 in 5 will have Alzheimer's. So working with cognitive decline and just decreasing the lifestyle and risk for cognitive decline, and diabetes important. So as I mentioned, menopause is quite having a day, and there's just so much more information out there and community around hormone changes as we age. I feel like that perimenopause 40-year-old time period is still a little bit neglected, but those voices are getting louder too, and I love that. There are some not so great changes during perimenopause. Moods become very labile as we get closer to our period. The midsection weight gain starts in the 40-year-old perimenopause time period. Don't sleep as well, wake up 2, 3, 4 in the morning, more anxiety, difficulty with focus, decreased libido. We feel more fatigued. And then in menopause, we start to see more of the hot flashes and night sweats, that brain fog, verbal recall, processing speed, joint and muscle pain. Estrogen's a potent anti-inflammatory, so we really do start feeling more hip pain, shoulder pain. And we're unique. Our symptoms are varied as far as the severity. I do have some patients, this is a minority, that goes through aging without any symptoms of the declining estradiol, but the majority do have a degree of one of these changes. can go ahead to the next slide. So what do we do at VO? So, just the Discover plan as far as we, do a more thorough evaluation of labs. You go into your physician, and if you did all the biomarker screening that we did in my practice, it would be a lot of money, thousands of dollars to do all the biomarkers, and then good luck getting someone to do all of the tests for you. We tend to be a little bit reactive in healthcare. What's the problem? Then we'll look into it. With VO, it's the opposite. We're going to do extensive hormone panels. You go in and you say, I want to have my testosterone checked. And a lot of times there's some resistance. Why would we do that? Why would we check all of your hormones? And so we're going to do that extensive biomarkers. And then we come up with a plan, and just having the support with the wellness coaches who are fantastic to help enact your plan and support you along the way. I think that women in particular, we really like that community. We don't want to feel isolated. We want to know that there's a community of women, that are going through the same thing, that we have a community of providers that can support you along your journey. The wearables, I talk about sleep tracking all the time. One of the things we see is just that deep and REM sleep disappears with perimenopause and menopause, and that leads and contributes to the fatigue. And so, just doing a deeper dive into macronutrient tracking. A lot of us underestimate how much we're actually taking in, and seeing what macros we're getting in and caloric intake can help us with our weight gain struggles. Talking about adding movement into our life and really looking and spending the time to say, I know a personal example is I would never call myself sedentary. I'm on the go and we're moving a lot, and we think we're in motion constantly. And when I started tracking how many steps I was getting, it was 3,000, and I literally never sit down during the day. And I had to do a real reality check. That's sedentary. How can we get more movement into our lives? Stress mitigation, huge for women. We're taking care of everyone else. We put ourselves last always. The family comes first, friends come first, we're last. And so I love that we talk about stress mitigation, cortisol mitigation. What can we do for more self-care, whether it be gratitude journaling, sauna, cold plunge, massage, functional fit movement, stretching, salt therapy. Processed foods, it's a big problem with our standard American diet. And so we talk about that and how do we, strategies to decrease that. And then taking care of our gut microbiome. I love that that's just a hot topic now. We've neglected our gut microbiome, and we talk about ways, in particular, our functional nutritionist, Dr. Ellsbury, who is incredible, and I've learned so much from her, spends time in going over a specific nutrition plan for you. I'm happy to have questions, and thank you for this time. And I'm gonna toss it over to Dr. Ellsbury.
Thanks, Dr. Miller. Hi, everyone. So I'm Cindy Ellsbury, and it is such an honor to be with you here today. So if you're joining us, that tells me that you probably care very deeply about your health and you want to take ownership of it. And maybe you're just ready for a different approach, one that's rooted in real food, real science, and real health. And that's what we're all about here at VO. This is one of the reasons I love being at VO. Our approach is so much different than other healthcare and even alternative healthcare. So health and wellness has been a really big part of my life for as long as I can remember. I grew up on a farm, so we raised and grew just about everything we ate. We didn't use chemical pesticides and fertilizers. Everything was natural. And I still remember my dad telling me once that we will never buy food from the grocery store. The chemicals the farmers are using, the food they allow the farmers to feed the animals, they're going to make people sick. And that really shaped the way I saw food from the very beginning. So I just grew up looking at food as something that's very powerful, that could either keep us healthy, it could heal us, or it could harm us. And I had a very active childhood. I swam, we were always out riding horses, and we had all these farm animals that we took care of. And in high school, I ran track. So when I got to college, I just carried that passion with me, and I majored in exercise physiology and I minored in nutrition. So over the past 30 plus years, I've worked in your traditional hospitals, university wellness centers, integrative medicine clinics. I've run my own practice. And for the last 15 years, I've also designed and taught college courses in nutrition and holistic health. But what really deepened my work in this field was personal. I watched people that I love get caught in these endless cycles of chronic illness. And I saw how the traditional model just wasn't giving them answers or any real solutions. And I just didn't want that to be my family's future. So I went back to school. I got a PhD in integrative medicine, a doctorate in natural medicine, and both of those had a really heavy focus on orthomolecular nutrition. It just means using food as medicine. And I'm also a board certified holistic health practitioner, and I'm certified in pediatric obesity. So going down that path led me to some really powerful discoveries, especially around the connection between our environment, food, and health, which led me to the root causes of illness. I ended up doing my clinical research and dissertation on mold-related illness, something that I had seen affect countless people. And one of the most powerful cases I ever worked with was a 10-year-old boy that had been diagnosed with autism. But the autism diagnosis didn't come until he was, 9 or 10 years old. He just suddenly developed autism. Well, it turns out that after identifying and removing mold exposure, supporting his recovery through diet, supplements, lifestyle changes, he fully recovered. He didn't have autism. He just couldn't detox those toxins from his environment. And that's the kind of thing that can happen when we treat the whole person and not just the label. So I feel like, because I've worked at both traditional and alternative health clinics and the largest integrative medical center in the South, I saw the best and the worst of both worlds. And that's why I'm here at VO. VO's approach is completely different. VO focuses on the whole person, and they give you the tools to understand why certain foods matter. So we always start with food because food really is the foundation. But because many of us are so depleted from stress, the environment, the standard American diet that most of us pretty much grew up with, we'll use supplements to help bridge the gap while we rebuild with food. And I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with that had all kinds of GI issues or autoimmune conditions, chronic health issues, and they had no idea or they were never told that certain foods are critical for them to correct those issues. Most of them, even if they asked, were told no, food doesn't matter. So we really just need to go back to the basics because nutritional science, as advanced as it may seem, is still incredibly young. The very first vitamin was discovered less than 100 years ago. And our understanding of how nutrition impacts chronic disease, that's even more recent. Most of that research has really only accelerated in the last 20 to 30 years, and especially since the year 2000. So that's good, but also it creates a lot of confusion about food. And most people don't even think about food unless they're trying to lose weight. So if you just look at weight loss diets, it really does, there's so much out there. It doesn't matter if it's low fat, low carb, high protein, no fruit, only meat, whatever it is, most of them actually do work for people in the short term because all of those diets do one thing right. They cut out the processed stuff and they lower the calories. But the problem with those diets is that too many of them get way too restrictive or they become really trendy and we lose sight of what the body actually needs. We're told to fear fruit or cut out entire food groups. Or we focus so heavily on protein that we totally forget about fiber, healthy fats, the right kind of carbs. And something that I see all the time is that when we just focus on protein, we got to get enough protein in, we tend to go way over on the fat. So what we really need is balance. The human body thrives on a good mix of all three macronutrients, carbs, fats, proteins, and along with plenty of fiber, which most people are barely getting a fraction of. So it's really not about restricting entire food groups, it's more about nourishing. And another problem is that the food has changed. Some of my family were wheat farmers, and they still talk about how much the wheat has changed. Our ancestors would not recognize today's wheat. And the same is true for a lot of our foods. Our ancestors, for example, wouldn't recognize today's conventional dairy. So we start with quality, real whole foods, foods your body actually recognizes, and that's the foundation. And when we get back to those basics, everything else starts to shift. So we'll go to the gut slide. Yeah. Something else that is foundational to your health is your gut. And most people don't realize this, but there's more DNA in the bacteria living in your gut than in your entire body. So we're more microbe than human. And the health of that internal ecosystem impacts everything: your mood, energy, immune system, hormones, your ability to absorb nutrients, and even your skin. So gut health doesn't just affect digestion. It affects everything from inflammation and autoimmunity to mental health and metabolism. And when the gut's out of balance, you might feel it as bloating, brain fog, fatigue, food sensitivities, autoimmune flares, anxiety, and the list just goes on and on. So at VO, we use advanced testing, which looks at your gut microbiome in incredible detail. We'll also use a food allergy and sensitivity test, which is a big game changer. That one measures how your body reacts to 88 different foods through 4 immune pathways, not just one. So we'll catch what most tests miss. So we start by identifying imbalances, and then we begin to rebuild. That means removing those inflammatory foods, calming the gut with healing foods, and reintroducing the right bacteria through food and when needed supplements. So I am so excited to be at VO, and I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know all the members, and I love working with such a great team, and I hope I get to meet all of you very soon. And with that, I'll turn it over to David.
All right, super. So Biz, I think we're going to open it up to some questions from the audience. You can join me here and help delegate these questions.
Sure, sounds good. So we got a bunch of questions ahead of time. We'd asked for some emails to come in, and so we kind of aggregated some of those, and I'm looking around here. It looks like first up will be Dr. Miller. We're seeing a lot of uncertainty about menopause and perimenopause, and kind of specifically, what can I do about intense brain fog and mood swing symptoms in perimenopause?
It's a great question. I've never heard it. No, just kidding. Like I talk about that every day, all day. And I like to talk about it a several different approach. You know, I really am passionate about hormone therapy and debunking myths that have really been pervasive for the last 20 years. And so I do love, you know, talking about that. But, you know, I never talk about a medication without talking about lifestyle. And you know, the brain fog, it is true. Our brain loves estrogen, loaded with estrogen receptors. Our brain loves steady state hormones. And so in perimenopause, when nothing is steady state about us, up, down, our brain doesn't like that. We feel fatigued, verbal recall, processing speed, all an issue. We don't sleep well. That's going to contribute to brain fog. We tend to eat on the run, eat quicker, we're busier, more processed foods. Not great. Our brain doesn't love that. We tend to move less because we're so busy. It's a busy time of life. We don't love that. Our body, our brain, our gut does not like that. And so, talking about good rest, prioritizing sleep is important. Making good food choices, whole foods, taking care of our gut, important. Hydration, water. I talk about alcohol. Alcohol is, it doesn't serve us well as we age. I say it's a neurotoxin. So we talk about making, you know, different, better choices. So many mocktails now, and why are we choosing alcohol, and how can we replace it in a healthier manner? And there are some supplements. There are phytoestrogens. There are progestins. That you can use to help level the mood and to help with sleep and help with that brain fog. I think most importantly, finding somebody that's going to listen, that's going to help give you good strategies to navigate this. And if you feel dismissed, then, you know, searching somebody else out that will help you during this time period.
Great. Thank you so much. And then this will be, I guess, for Dr. Winiarski. I've seen you guys so much on screen and learned so much in some of these meetings with our members, because I was fortunate enough to be a coach, but I feel like this really comes up a lot. Someone with a family of heart disease, his dad looks like passed away fairly young at 61. What test should he pay attention to or run specifically?
Yeah, heart disease is a multifaceted disease, and it's hard to say which one particular test. But if we were limited of what we could do, and this is obviously depending on a person's age, and we could only do a lab test, I would say that ApoB would be number 1, and lipoprotein(a) would be number 2. And I think those are the two that influence the risk of heart disease the greatest. Of course, this is there are other factors that we need to take into account: metabolic health, the patient's age, Nowadays, we have the ability to image the disease process itself, so we can actually see whether or not the individual has developed plaques if they're old enough. The older they are, so we're talking about men over 45, women over 55, they've been around long enough to possibly develop plaques. So we can actually image those plaques using a coronary calcium score, CT angiogram, and that can give us a lot of information much earlier than you would get if you just waited for an event to happen or to get symptoms. So labs, it would be ApoB and lipoprotein(a), and if we were to do imaging, I would at least start out with a coronary calcium score.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to take this question from Nancy, wondering where we go to get tested if you join the VO program. So we've got contracts nationwide with different labs that are all set up and integrated in our platform. And you can go to your local lab and get those drawn. And then that automatically is synced up with our system and will be on your dashboard. So for Dr. Ellsbury, we're wondering what your approach is to supplements, and then if you can also help Suzanne out with recommending a couple foods that would support gut health.
Oh, sure. Okay, great question, because most of our members go from not taking any supplements or maybe, multivitamin or fish oil to having to take a few when we first get started. We always take a food first approach. That's kind of the foundation. But when we see specific deficiencies in the labs, or there's certain symptoms that can be improved with the right supplements, we'll bring those supplements in to help bridge the gap. And the supplements that we recommend are the third-party tested, pharmacy grade supplements. And our health coaches are phenomenal. They're really great at working closely with the members to make sure they're on track with the supplements. So we're going to recommend the bare minimum to address, deficiencies and symptoms. We're not going to try to, put you on a ton of supplements where food can handle whatever we're trying to go after. But, some of us are just so deficient from the standard American diet. We can get you up to par faster by doing some supplements along with the food. So we kind of look at it as a way to bridge the gap until we get you to optimal.
Great. Thanks,
And you said, what was the second question?
Oh,
Foods.
couple foods for gut health.
Okay, so for the average person, I mean, this can be different depending on other symptoms, acid reflux and some other things. Some of these foods might not work, but as a general rule, gut health is going to be, clean fiber foods, your beans, your lentils, your fruits and veggies, clean fiber foods. If your gut can handle it, fermented foods are great. Your kimchis, your yogurts, your anything fermented, sauerkraut, so fermented veggies. Some people can handle the fermented, some people can't. And I get a lot of people who say, oh, I can't do beans. They give me really bad gas or they upset my stomach. That's a really good indicator that you don't have all of the good bacteria in the gut that we want. So if those foods bother you, what I typically tell people is do a forkful. Just a forkful a day is going to be one of those things that can help with the gut. And then if we have to do more targeted, with a supplement, L-glutamine is really good to heal the gut, but aloe is good to heal the gut or healthy for the gut. There's, hundreds of foods, but those are sort of the general rule. Your fiber foods, fruits and veggies, all your herbs are really good, and your fermented vegetables. Yogurt can be, but for some, because of the conventional dairy issue, for some, dairy is not the best choice. So anything else fermented, or if you know the farmer where you get it, you want to make sure it's not the conventional. So that's just kind of the general rule, but more targeted depending on labs and symptoms.
Perfect. I know a bunch of our members have integrated some fermented foods that they didn't think that they would be able to try and have had really great results. So thank you for that.
Oh, great.
And Dr. Miller, I know we're getting some questions about osteoporosis in women, kind of guarding against it, and people, wondering what they can do to be preventative. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I love this question. To back it up a little bit with VO, the discover part is really important. So I do love doing that DEXA scan that we do. I love it for a couple of reasons. We as women have been told to restrict, no calories, no calories, don't eat, don't eat. And that's just not great, right? And so looking at your muscle mass, avoiding sarcopenia. So that's what the DEXA will do. It also looks at that bone density and gives me your T score, your Z score. So the discovery part important. What do we do as we start to see that we lose bone? How do we protect the bone? Weight bearing exercise. And so I talk a lot about, okay, well, what does that mean? Is it just walking? Should we add a weighted vest? What if we have some spine osteopenia? There's actually great data that jump therapy. So we want that impact. So we don't want to hurt ourselves, but we want to make sure we're really doing impact. So jumping jacks, actually 20 every night before you go to bed, really helps improve bone health. Vitamin D3, so many people are deficient. We are food first, but there are a couple areas that we have a really hard time, or most of us, at getting it in our diet, and vitamin D is one of them. And so, with calcium, we really do prefer that to be through our foods. And so we talk about food sources for calcium. Too much calcium, not a great thing, can deposit in our heart and our kidneys. And so, but vitamin D, really hard to get in our food. And so, having that vitamin D supplement if we need it, and then also rechecking our levels at 6 months to make sure we're absorbing it and that it is making a difference. So vitamin D3 supplementation, monitoring those levels, checking your bone density score, getting that weight bearing exercise. And then there are some things to avoid that's not great for our bones, excess caffeine, alcohol. But yeah, great question.
Okay, great. Thanks. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed the DEXA scan and just understanding like their visceral fat levels and what's kind of going on in their body. So that's been fantastic. Dr. Winiarski, in looking at your graph, if someone already has diabetes, can they still affect their longevity by using VO?
Yeah, definitely. I love working with type 2 diabetics. It's very gratifying because I truly believe that this is a disease that's in almost all cases reversible. The earlier you catch it, the better. I tell most of my patients, or I explain to them that type 2 diabetes is a spectrum disease, meaning that it starts very early as very subtle insulin resistance, and over the years and decades gets progressively worse, and you develop prediabetes and then diabetes. So by the time you have type 2 diabetes, you've already had insulin resistance for at least 10 to 20 years, if not longer. But it's very responsive to lifestyle changes. It's very responsive to diet and exercise, weight loss. And now we have some amazing medications that can help with that. So, this used to be a disease that we treated the symptoms of. So, and sadly, it's still being treated in certain areas like this where we focus more on decreasing the sugar level rather than addressing the underlying insulin resistance. And most of that insulin resistance stems from the accumulation of visceral adiposity, or the fat that surrounds our organ. So if we can reduce that, people can see dramatic improvements in their diabetes, even remission of their diabetes. And now we have the continuous glucose monitors that are over the counter. If these individuals don't have that, I would recommend that they get that so they can get really rapid feedback on the strategies that they adopt in order to reverse their diabetes. So they can see that the exercise drops their sugar, the change in their diet drops their sugar, better sleep drops their sugar. And these people have had insulin resistance, like I said, for years and years and years, and have gradually felt worse and worse, but really have not noticed it. And with this dramatic reversal, they feel incredibly better, and they've forgotten how good they could feel. So it's really gratifying. So yes, I encourage anyone that has type 2 diabetes not to give up and to realize that it is a reversible disease in most cases.
Great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Ellsbury, wanting to know a little bit more about your nutrition programming, kind of how that works, how you put that together. And we've got like about 30 seconds or so to go, and specifically your recommendations on protein in general.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the fun part of my job, is putting together that nutrition piece, because it's really, really highly personalized. There's no, one size fits all. So we start with the lab results, your intake, symptoms, goals. We look at the DEXA scan. When I look at the DEXA scan, it just kind of helps me calculate calorie needs, your targets for macronutrients. And then I use this very detailed nutrition questionnaire that you fill out. There's questions on there you would never think a nutritionist would want to know, but lots of questions, underlying symptoms, things that you may not even think about, like even, infections and things you had from childhood may show up on that questionnaire. And then I combine all of that information with the doctor's input to build a plan that's really tailored just for you. And then we also look at your lifestyle and your food preferences so that it's realistic and actually works for you. So I'm not going to tell someone to eat a bunch of foods that they don't like. So we take that into consideration. And if you're working and eating most of your meals out for business lunches and dinners, we choose healthy options built around that. So we'll look at the menus from the restaurants that you frequent the most, and we'll pick the healthy versions, and we make sure everything hits those targets and that it works for your goals and biomarkers.
That's perfect. And then do you have just I know I've heard it, but for everybody else, kind of what is your go-to ratio as far as protein intake per day?
Okay, so really, if you look it up in a nutrition textbook or a sports nutrition textbook, what you're going to see most often is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. You do the conversion. So that's an easy thing to say for the general population. But as we get older, we need more. And that DEXA is really what I look at to determine what that number should look like as far as a range. The minimum you should get in, the max that you want to hit, and we want to do clean proteins because, like I said earlier, a lot of people just focus on trying to get more protein in, and the quality of the protein is not so great, and they end up going way over on the fat. So we got to have the balance in there. General rule that works for most people, for the research shows, if you're trying to prevent disease, is 30% of your total calories. This is general. 30% of your total calories from protein, 30 from fat, 40 from carbs, but the good clean carbs. So that's kind of the general, but really that your age, your activity level, and the DEXA really tells me more specific what that target should be.
Great. Yeah, I feel like everything you do is highly, highly personalized. So thanks guys so much. So it looks like our last question is going to be for David. We want to get down to the pricing. How much does it cost?
Great question. Before I answer it, thank you, team. What an incredible group of talented clinicians. I think you all can see why we're so proud of them and so fortunate and grateful to have them on this team. If there was ever a group of people that was going to make you happier by making you healthier, it's this group. And to answer the question about pricing, we do believe you're getting a ton of value from the technology, from the testing, from the planning, and from your encounters with this team that you've met on the webinar today. You get multiple rounds per year of membership. So you go through testing multiple times, you go through planning multiple times for course correction, and you get multiple visits with the team that you've met here today, in addition to the coaches that are by your side all year long. So it's about the lowest, currently the lowest offer that we have today is a special offer for you guys, and it's $225 per month is the price for VIO. You can also pay annually and get a slightly, it's $247 per month. It's $225 per month if you pay it all up front. So the lowest price you can get today as a special offer for you guys is $225 paid upfront on a monthly basis. And it's a ton of value. So we're really excited about that offer. It's less than what I pay for a single trip to the grocery store per month, or less than what I pay for a car payment. And why shouldn't we be, investing as much in our flesh vessel as we are in my, Volkswagen? So it's a great value, a great price point. We would love for you to join us on this journey. I think you can see the website at the bottom of this page, but we also have this QR code where you can get access to the special offer that I mentioned. Just put the word webinar in the form when you sign up. And we can't wait to go on this journey with you. So thanks to the team here on the call. Thanks for all of you that participated to learn more about VIO. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to earn the opportunity to help you on your health journey. Thank you. Anything else, Biz?
No, that'll do it. Thanks everyone so much for joining. And remember, you can watch this down the road.
Perfect. Have a
Thank you,
great
guys.
day.